So guys, as I was telling you in the previous video, this is what we can do when we encounter new terms and we need to explain them to our audience, right? We would use parentheses, and another thing that we can do is to make a footnote. The footnote is actually going to make it less intrusive for people reading our text, right? So here we have the example. I am trying to explain the meaning of zeitgeist. Yes, I am using this asterisk over here, and then I use the asterisk again in order to explain what the term means. Sometimes we can also use a translator note, and we write the letter TN or NT as nota del traductor if it's in Spanish, of course. And what is important for you to know is that this translator note is not necessarily to explain, it's not necessarily used to explain a term. The translator note can also help us to explain cultural aspects, historic aspects, so that people can understand whatever we are translating in a better light, right? Now, what else can we do if we find these new words? What we can do in a general sense, right? Not that we can do it all the time, is to remember that Spanish has lots of dialects, and particularly the Spanish from Spain really hates when you use foreign terms in Spanish. So they really hate when you use direct borrowings. One option is to create an entirely new term. Again, you gotta remember that Latin America is much more permissive, it's much more accepting of these issues of using foreign terms in our versions of the language, right? In our dialects. I would advise you not to do this, however, unless you are doing a serious piece of work, that is a book, a dissertation, etc. Because if you try to invent, yes, if you try to create a new word, if you try to make your own neologism, it has to catch up. If it doesn't catch up, it loses its purpose. So that's why I advise that we do this when we are working with serious pieces of translation. Of course, it's important that we make sure that we do the proper research to know that there is not a word that is being used as an equivalent in our language. I have a couple examples of neologisms for you guys. For example, we have the neologism navegador, which is the equivalent of web browser. I think that we use navegador because at the beginning we talked, at the beginning of the use of the internet, we talked about surfing the web, right? Surfing the web, so surfing and, navegar. So I kind of feel that there's a connection, right? There's a sort of imagery connected over there. We have the term webgraphia, which is of course a bibliographical list of reference of electronic resources. And we have the word scratche. Scratche is the name of a demonstration that we make where the activists, where the demonstrators actually go to the house of the person or the persons against whom they are demonstrating. They go to their houses, they go to their workplaces, or the places where they usually visit. Imagine that, for example, I did something and then I did something wrong, and then all my students come over here outside my house and they start demonstrating against me. They are making a demonstration against me right in front of my house, public shaming me. So that's a scratchy. I think that this comes from the English word scratch, to be honest. I feel that it has to do with scratch, like to cross out, right? But I don't know, I may be wrong. But I because of the phonological aspects of the word scratch, it sounds really alike. So I think it comes from that word. And most importantly, guys, you gotta remember that you need to consider your audience. And you might want to use specialized vocabulary sparsely if you are translating for people who are neophytes to that particular field. Because the more unfamiliar terms you use, the harder it is going to be for the people to understand your translation. And you don't want to do that, right? You don't want to do that. When you translate, what you want to guarantee is the ease of understanding of the message. Consider this. How did you feel when you, in the first sentence, with the use of the terms sparsely and neophytes, right? So if our vocabulary is not specialized, and let me rephrase that. If our audience vocabulary is not specialized and we keep using these terms, then we are going to create comprehension issues for the people who are our audience, and we don't want to do that. Of course, we don't want to do that. Also, remember the point that I told you, that if you are translating for specialists, if you're translating for specialists in the field, then I would advise that you use the specialized terms and that you do not provide explanations for those, because it's going to be like you are talking down to them. It's going to be like, yes, I know what you mean. It's like if we are in a class and you keep explaining to me what the 4 macro skills are in the language. Dude, I know what the 4 macro skills are. Why do you keep on telling me this? Actually, it's a criticism that I make from some students writing, that you keep explaining what the 4 macro skills are to people who are specialized in the language, that you keep explaining what EFL and what ESL and what ELT is. I feel that it's pointless, and somehow it can be considered a little arrogant from some people when they do this. I have a few more examples. Check this out. Schadenfreude is my favorite source of joy, said the horrible man after the little boy fell from the seesaw. Schadenfreude. This is a term, again, this is a German term that we have implemented in English. And basically, what I'm going to show you, this strategy now is to use an appositive. I am going to use this word, this term, as an appositive in my translation. El placer que obtengo de la mala suerte de los demás, Schadenfreude, es mi fuente favorita de alegría, dijo el hombre horrible después que el niñito se cayera del sube y baja. So that's a variation, of course. That's another possibility. One more example. Marina says she feels comfortable changing in front of Martin because he is kosher. She has no idea. Now let me explain this kosher meaning. See, kosher is a specific process of cooking and preparing foods for Jewish people. As you know, every religion, most religions have certain restrictions on what you can eat. Yes, so for example, Jewish people and I think Muslim people do not eat pork, right? So they cannot consume this, so their food has to be kosher. It must not contain elements that they consider are against their religious beliefs. Now, this is the more widely accepted term, but we can also use kosher to refer to somebody who doesn't pose danger. To be more precise, somebody that you don't have to worry about. But anyway, let me instead share the translation with you. I think it's going to make things clearer now. Marina dice que se siente cómoda cambiándose enfrente de Martín porque él es inofensivo. No tiene ni idea que él es heterosexual. So maybe inofensivo is not the right word, right? It's not the right word. It's not the most appropriate word, but it's an approximation of what kosher means in this context, right? She believes that Martin is gay, right? That she doesn't have to worry that he is looking at her only in her bra, right? So those are examples of specialized terms, what we can use, approximations we can get to their translations, and always bear in mind that in translation we will always lose something. We will always lose some part of the meaning. It's impossible for us when doing translation to achieve 100% faithfulness in translations. We will always lose something because we are dealing with different languages, we are dealing with different cultures, and that is challenging enough. Guys, thanks for sticking around. This was my presentation on specialized vocabulary. I hope it is useful for you when we are doing our exercises, when we are doing our practices in this topic, right? Until next time, guys, I'll see you around.